wide-ranging: apologetics, theology, prophecy, creation and evolution, intelligent design, marriage, family, child-rearing, the millennial generation, trends in society, politics, economics, business, religious liberty, the Constitution, public policy, foreign policy, military policy, tensions in the Middle East, abortion, homosexuality, pornography, sexual ethics, media, technology, history, and America's godly heritage. We talk about anything that affects your faith, your family, or your freedom. So don't go anywhere, because Point of View starts right now.
Across America, live. This is Point of View. And now, Kirby Anderson.
Thank you for joining me today. As we announced last week, we have in studio with us Jim Paris. And the reason is that a number of months ago, we did talk about Bitcoin. There were so many people with so many questions, we decided to bring him in studio. So first of all, let me encourage you to either go to Facebook Live, and you can watch the program there. Go to our website, pointofview.net. You can watch that. You might want to listen to it again later, so you can download the podcast or go to the YouTube channel. The reason we're doing this is because, first of all, we are convinced that this is going to maybe change a number of things. The first article is one by Jim that says 2018 will be the year of internet money. If you go to our website right now, you'll notice something unique, and that is we give you an opportunity to donate with cryptocurrency, and so this may be the first ministry to do so. And over the years, Jim, you've known Marlon Maddox, you've known me, and we've always been wanting to be on the cutting edge, so that's something new right there on our own website.
Yeah, I think that's tremendous, and if someone is listening and maybe they've had a big windfall with a cryptocurrency, this is an opportunity. Talk to your tax person, but this would be a way that you could give a gift in kind, as we call it, and possibly benefit by avoiding a capital gain and also get a charitable deduction. So something to look at, just a new way to do it.
We'll talk more about that a little bit later, but I just thought I'd mention that because it illustrates that a couple of years ago, I've known you for a long time. By the way, again, if you're not familiar, Jim Paris is editor-in-chief of ChristianMoney.com and has been on the program with us many times. Matter of fact, last time we spent some time talking about how individuals could make more money from home, and he certainly has been very good at that, and how you can get maybe the cheapest flight or the cheapest credit card. But a while back, you started saying, this Bitcoin stuff, what about this? Oh, well, I need to write an article about it. I'm not so sure I've got my head quite wrapped around it, but I'll write about it, and then I'll maybe invest a little bit in it, and all of a sudden you're doing this essentially full-time, are you not?
Yeah, you mean other than my writing, which I still do, and I still have ChristianMoney.com, I'm pretty much spending a good chunk of my day trading cryptocurrencies, and I'm up now to, I think, 46 cryptocurrencies that I own. And I teach an online class on cryptocurrency. So I think about a month or two ago, I was officially deemed to not be crazy by the general public, because up until then I was kind of like the weird guy that talked about that internet money stuff, and no one really thought it was ever going to get to this point. And I know people are right now scratching their head like, a lot of people are predicting a downturn and a bubble and all of these things. And just for fun this morning, I took a look at two of my favorite ones.
Okay.
And so Bitcoin, which has, quote unquote, crashed, it was almost 20,000, and now it's down to 14,000. But a year ago from right now, it was only $850.
Yeah.
So what a crash. I'll take those crashes all day long. 850 to 14,000. And then Ripple, which is my second favorite one. So a year ago, you could have gotten into Ripple for under a penny.
Yeah.
And now
2 for 1, I think. I remember right.
Yeah. It's and now it's $1.82, but it's quote unquote crashed because it was $3.40 and now it's $1.82. So you have to look at these things more longer term. And one of the big trends that is happening right now, there's sort of this big argument debate going on within the cryptocurrency community, which is, will Bitcoin become MySpace?
Yes.
Meaning, for people that don't know what MySpace is, MySpace was the first major social media platform, and everyone thought, oh, this is the future, it's MySpace. Well, then Mark Zuckerberg came up with Facebook and passed MySpace, and now we don't even really remember MySpace, a lot of people. So there's this question right now, which is was Bitcoin the first, but won't be the most prominent at some point. And so that is why, for me, and what I'm doing in my online class, is I'm trying to put a lot of money, like small amounts, into a lot of different ones, because you just don't know necessarily which one is going to maybe be that Facebook, that one that has the major breakout. Now, I was telling this to one of my friends the other day, and they said, yeah, but so what? You put $100 in something, what could that be worth? And I reminded him, and I'll remind your listeners, that $100 in 2009 in Bitcoin is worth over $250 million today. So that is why it does make a lot of sense if you can. One of the ideas I have is if you have a big windfall in one of these cryptocurrencies, take some of those profits and put it in some of the lesser known ones. There's a lot of, different research, and in my Bitcoin class, I have some of my students buying some of them that I am not buying, and I'm buying some that they're not buying. Everybody kind of has their own ideas and their own, direction that they're going in. But each one of these that comes out, Kirby, it's like they've sort of built on the Bitcoin idea, and they have come up with superior technologies. So Bitcoin was the first, but some of these others are actually better in terms of the software, because they can process more quickly and do more things, have more features than Bitcoin. So we really don't know who will be the final winner in this whole thing.
Well, and again, we've seen that before. You remember Betamax and VHS?
Right.
And of course, you talk about MySpace and Facebook and all of the rest. But let me just say that we're going to go through here in just a few minutes and kind of be very practical. And some of you are going to say, look, this isn't really something that interests me, but I'll listen for a few more minutes because I hear about it all the time. I might as well at least know enough so I can talk about it. But a lot of this came from you being, I believe it was back in May, because I know that's when I first did what you suggested to do. And that is, if you got $100, go buy $100 of Bitcoin. It's something that wouldn't necessarily tax you. If you lost your $100, really, it's not any big deal. And I just watch it go like that,
Yeah.
And you said, eventually that could be worth 1,000 times that. And so then I started saying, okay, well, I'll invest in a couple of others, Ethereum and Litecoin. And I'm not a lot, but, again, as you've said before, put a little bit in that you could afford to lose. But at the same time, maybe this is the next technology. And I can remember a time when we were trying to convince Marlon Maddox that he needed to have a web page. I remember when Dick Bott called up one day and said, you need to have a fax machine. So a lot of us have grown through a time where there's some new things on the horizon, and this is the newest one on the horizon. And I wanted people to be able to ask you questions about this.
Yeah, and so we go through what we call this adoption curve, where we're at right now, many people compare it to like the late 90s as far as internet use and adoption. Mm-hmm. So if you remember the late 90s, that's when most businesses still didn't have a website. Many people were saying, I would never go on the internet. What is the internet? We were making fun of like George Bush saying interwebs or the Google or whatever he said. So this is where we're at with this right now, which is why I'm so excited about it. And, one Christian guy I know who's made a lot more with all of this than I have, he said to me that he feels that in the last days that the Lord is going to move the wealth to believers so that we can reach the world, that there's going to be a great transfer of wealth. And he believes, is what he told me, that it's going to happen from things like what's happening with cryptocurrency. Now, the Lord hasn't given me personally necessarily that word, but there's so many Christians that are so interested in this. I get 2 emails from your listeners. I bought Bitcoin, and then I get the whole story about how much they've made. I didn't buy Bitcoin because my friends told me not to or whatever, but it's always still back to $100, $200, and if you lost it, it wouldn't matter. But what if it's almost like you can't afford to miss out on this, fear of missing out. If you don't put anything in, you don't have any chance of making anything.
Well, let's take a break, and when we come back, we're going to get into some just basics, Bitcoin 101 a little bit.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we'll open up the phones. I know many of you have questions, and I wasn't even going to try to answer them. That's why we have Jim Paris in studio. You can watch it online, or, of course, you can join us by phone. We'll be right back.
This is Viewpoints with Kirby Anderson.
As last year was ending and this year was beginning, we've seen tumult in Tehran. While Iranians have been protesting in the streets, there is another important story that is being missed. Mark Howard, writing in the Gospel Coalition, says that the story can be summarized in 2 sentences. Persecution threatened to wipe out Iran's tiny church. Instead, the church in Iran has become the fastest growing in the world, and it is influencing the region for Christ. This is an incredible story. When the Iranian Revolution took place in the late 1970s, Christians faced persecution from the militant Muslim leaders. Bibles were banned and missionaries were kicked out of the country. Many feared that might be the end of the tiny Iranian church. Michael Brown compares it to the fears Christians had when China closed its doors behind the bamboo curtain and began persecuting Christians. But instead of that being the end of Christianity in China, just the opposite happened. Millions of Chinese people became Christians. Something similar has happened in Iran. More Iranians have become Christians in the last 20 years than in the previous 13 centuries. Operation World named Iran as having the fastest growing evangelical church in the world. Also, I might mention that they believe that the second fastest growing church is in Afghanistan. Why is the church in Iran growing so fast? Well, first, the violence done in the name of Islam has caused widespread disillusionment with Islam itself and the Iranian regime. Second, bold Iranian Christians are proclaiming the gospel to their fellow citizens and giving hope in the midst of difficult circumstances. Although the press will cover the protests in the streets, I think the more important story is what is happening in the hearts of the Iranian people who are converting to Christ in record numbers. I'm Kirby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
For more information about issues covered on Viewpoints, visit pointofview.net. Pointofview.net.
You're listening to Point of View, your listener-supported source for truth.
Privileged to have in studio with us today Jim Paris, and again, he's with Christian Money. We're talking about cryptocurrency, and before we get into some of the practical aspects, I was just thinking back. You have this article that came out in November predicting that 2018 would be the year of internet money. Now, it's been a few months since then, and it's gone up, it's gone down a little bit like that. But I also can remember, let me pick one, Jimmy Dimon, he's with Goldman Sachs. Okay, this is a pretty smart guy.
Yeah.
He's quoted every once in a while in the news. He's said some things about Donald Trump. We'll leave that another day. And he said some things about the stock market. But I remember at one point, he said this Bitcoin stuff and all this cryptocurrency, there's not a chance. I saw an interview with him the other day where he said, you know what? I've changed my mind on that.
Yeah, because Wall Street has now decided they want in on this. And so what you have is Bitcoin futures just started trading a few weeks ago. Yeah. We also have, I don't know how many dozens of ETFs, exchange traded fund applications, are now on file with the SEC, where you can actually, if these go through, start buying Bitcoin like in your mutual funds and your retirement plans. And we keep going back to the fact there's only going to be 21 million Bitcoin ever created. So everybody looking at this wave of new demand that's going to be created. I mean, some people are predicting 1 million for one Bitcoin. Some are predicting 2 million. Some are predicting 5 million, 10 million. I don't know. I'm not really big into making those predictions, but we had Warren Buffett kind of rattled the cryptocurrency market a few days ago. He came out against it, but you got to love Warren Buffett, but he comes more from the generation where he's made a lot of his money buying railroads, investing in oil, investing in banks, these kinds of things, more traditional businesses. And we're still in that point right now. We were talking in the break a little bit. You remember when people said, who would ever buy a book online? You know, you go to
we'll
a
always have
bookstore.
bookstores.
Yeah, you go
it's
to a
harder to find them.
bookstore and you've got to, page through it and you've got to look at it and find, look at the, read a couple pages of it. People have said that about bookstores, right? And then look at where we're at. They say Bezos now, his net worth goes up by every day by $1 billion. By $1 billion a day. That's the growth of his net worth. So whether we look at like Uber's knocking out taxis or Google knocking out the yellow pages, or somebody was talking to me the other day about the search engines, and they said, you remember back in the day when there was like Ask Jeeves and some of these other search engines, and now it's Google. So, but the thing is that we just don't know where this all ends in terms of. One company that I really like, and I mentioned the last time I was here, was Ripple.
Ripple. Mm-hmm.
And full and fair disclosure, I do have a large amount of Ripple that I own personally. But
those are very inexpensive.
Yeah, you can buy Ripple right now for $1.82 for one Ripple. And what the ingenious kind of angle that they have is they're using this currency to settle international money transfer transactions. So rather than creating this scenario where it's mutually exclusive, it's like we're going to make an end run around the banking system with this whole new idea of cryptocurrency. We're coming up with something new that's going to put the banks out of business. They're saying we're going to go into business with the banks, and we're going to get rid of this idea of a money wire. We're going to get rid of this idea of a Western Union MoneyGram, all of these different ways that money is transferred, and we're going to replace that with this virtual currency called Ripple. So all of this stuff is happening, and it's literally like you miss a day of reading the news on this, and it's like you've missed a lifetime. And this stuff trades 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So once you get into this, there is no day off because it's Saturday or Sunday and the markets are closed. This is a 24-hour market, just like the Forex exchanges trade 24/7.
But a lot of people might just want to do what you suggested before. I'll buy it and ignore it.
Sure.
And that's certainly
that's
the case.
for most people,
And that would be certainly the case. And if you think about that, that's what people right now have with a lot of their 401ks and IRAs. If you ask somebody how much is in your 401k, they'll look at you like, I don't know. I haven't looked at it for a year. I know it's in there, and I got somebody managing it, I guess, and I don't even have an idea. Or somebody said, well, I bought a few gold coins and put it in a safe or in a safety deposit box. What's it selling for today? I don't know. It's probably, and that's kind of the way some people go about it. But talk about this just in a practical way, and then let's open up the phones. I want to give some of you a chance to ask some questions. I know you have them, so that's why we did this today. So 1-800-351-1212, 1-800-351-1212 if you'd like to ask Jim Paris a question. But if somebody says, I don't even know where to start with this idea of Bitcoin, help us out.
So if you want to get started, what you have to do is find a place to buy Bitcoin. And there's a lot of different ways to do it, but really the easiest way we have found is to use a service called Coinbase.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I even set up a special link for people. If you use this link, you get an extra $10 of Bitcoin. If you buy $100 of Bitcoin, it's, bitcoinbonus.us. I forgot what it was, bitcoinbonus.us. If you go there, you buy $100 of Bitcoin, then they give you $110 of Bitcoin. But that's how you have to go to an exchange and get started. Now, you don't have to buy 100. You could buy a lesser amount than that. I think their minimum might be $20 or $30, something like that. But that's how most people get started. And they get started with the big one, the granddaddy of them all, Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But then the other two or three sort of also rans. You have a lot of people, taking a look at Ethereum, which is another one.
Right.
And then Litecoin is another one. And then Coinbase has a fourth one now called Bitcoin Cash, which you probably, what happens when a church splits?
Yeah.
You have like a denomination splits, and then you have two. Well, Bitcoin split. There's like a big argument between the developers and the mining community, and they had a big split back in August. So everyone that owned Bitcoin got an equal amount of Bitcoin Cash. It's called BCC, Bitcoin Cash.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And anybody that owned as of August 1st got this Bitcoin Cash, which is a lot of money if you owned a lot of Bitcoin. But now that's out there too. So there's all these different variations on it. But, the easiest way to get started is own just actually a little bit of Bitcoin.
Now, again, some people might just say, well, what exactly is this? Because I don't hold a coin in my hand, but there is a very long chain that protects you from And so that it establishes that this is uniquely yours, and the money that you invest and the amount that it raises is available to you, which then you can transfer into, currency.
Right. It's a concept called the blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
And it's being used for, it's not just being used for cryptocurrency. The idea is not being used to make sure somebody returned their library book that they took out. It's being used to handle medical records. It kind of works like a title to a house. So the house that you own now may have had, say, 10 owners before you moved in. So the next time that house gets sold, they're going to research all the way back to the first owner and do what's called a title search and make sure that actually, changed hands the 10 times and now the 11th time. This is the same idea behind the blockchain. It is what we call proof of work, or it's a mathematical equation that proves that you own that coin.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what's unique about it. And so for people that compare it to like the tulip bulb craze, this is not a tulip bulb. This is actually very sophisticated software, and the value in it is the software itself, the technology. Now, of course, in the world, if two people agree that something is a value, then it can become a currency. And that goes all the way back to biblical days, where a piece of silver or, piece of gold could be used as currency. So this is the really where people, I think, are enamored with Bitcoin is the idea, Kirby, you could be on the other side of the world, and I want to transfer to you the equivalent of $1 million US. The easiest, fastest way for me to do that is to send you $1 million in Bitcoin. All of the other processes would take days for you to get that money.
I know that. I've done this.
Yeah. Person-to-person movement of money really doesn't exist. And this is why this is so revolutionary. The idea that you have a relative that maybe lives in another country and you want to send them some money, you got to stand on a line at the grocery store and use Western Union, pay all kinds of money, and maybe 2 or 3 days later they may or may not see the money, less all the fees. This is a way. It's kind of like, I consider it a combination between like a credit card and a bank wire and an email. Like if I could send you an email in that time frame and send you money, that's really what the point of this is, and that's why it is so revolutionary.
For one of the websites that I work with, Pro Ministries, we've sent money to translators, and, sending money to Hungary, sending money to Argentina, wherever, where our translators might be. It's just so difficult, and this would just be so much easier, especially if they had a Bitcoin account. You could just transfer it instantaneously.
Right.
And just type it on the screen. We already have some questions coming in, and we will get some more. Matter of fact, one of those is, okay, what if you've lost the account? How do you retrieve some of that? So that's a question we're going to get into, actually what the accounts mean and all of that. So we got a lot more to cover, and I wanted to give you as much of an opportunity to ask some questions of Jim Paris today, because some of you have asked those questions, and I didn't want to try to answer them either by email or on the air, and he's in studio with us today, so don't wait to the very last hour of the program or the last few minutes of the program and all the calls come in, because, again, we're giving you that opportunity to ask him some questions. I've got a lot more questions, too, but I know you do, and so we want to give you that opportunity. So that number is 1-800-351-1212. 1-800-351-1212. If you have a skeptical point of view, well, we've posted an article about that, but we'll respond to those as well. Just give you a perspective that maybe would be helpful to you, and we'll let you make decisions on your own. We'll be back right after this.
Point of View is committed to spreading the truth, oftentimes a truth that those in political power don't like getting heard. But the only way it can be heard is if our team stands strong together, if you do what you can to support the Point of View Truth Team. It's having an impact, as we heard recently from U.S. Representative Louis Gohmert.
Everywhere I go, I hear people that you have influenced, that Point of View has affected. You have made such a difference, and you rely on people to contribute, and if they don't contribute, then that truth does not get heard.
Help Point of View make a difference. Pray and consider what level is right for you. $30, $65, $100 a month, or even more. Please do what you can. 1-800-347-5151, or visit online, pointofview.net. Look near the top right for the link that says Become a Monthly Partner. Join the Truth Team. 800-347-5151. and pointofview.net. Point of View will continue after this.
You are listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again is Kirby Anderson.
Continue our conversation today. In studio with us is Jim Paris. And again, he is with ChristianMoney.com. You can find all that information on the website. First article we've posted today, will 2018 be the year of Internet money? I think that it might, and that's why we're talking about it and wanted to answer as many of your questions as we possibly can. That number is 1-800-351-1212. If you don't know much about cryptocurrency, just kind of stick with us, because I can think our second caller is going to ask some basic questions, and any question is an appropriate one on the program today. Let's go first to North Carolina, though, and Elizabeth. I think her son has an issue, and she wanted to ask you a question. So, Elizabeth, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for taking my call. Yes, my son got into Bitcoin a few years ago, and I'll just start off by telling you I don't know much of anything about it. I do know that he has quite a bit of Bitcoin, and that somehow he was getting a computer-generated password, and his printer was not working, and so he couldn't print the password off. Somehow he lost the password. I know it's a 12-digit password, but
so it's a 12-word phrase that you can use to restore your wallet. So let me help you a little bit and help everybody else trying to wonder what we're talking about here. So what we're talking about, since it's not a physical currency, it's not like a $20 bill you put in your wallet. We have something called a wallet, which is the equivalent of that, but it's like something virtual that holds the cryptocurrency. So the easiest way to do it is just keep an account at somewhere like Coinbase, and that it's like a brokerage account or a bank account, and it's online. What your son did is something more complex, which is something that I've gotten into in recent months, which is where you're basically moving the money offline, the cryptocurrency offline onto
it looks like a flash drive.
Yeah, it looks like a flash drive. It's called an offline wallet, and there is a way to restore it when you set it up. They give you all these emergency measures, like if you physically lost the wallet, there's a way, if you have your 12 words written down, that you can get your wallet restored.
Right.
There's also something called Google Authenticator, which is when you go to log in.
And I've used that.
On a lot of these sites, it's not just your password, but then there's a randomly generated second password that comes on your cell phone through the Google Authenticator app. But to make a long story short, to help this particular listener, I would be happy if you wanted to send me an email to jim@christianmoney.com to see if I can get a little bit more information, maybe directly from your son, to point him in the right direction. But I want to be honest with you and say that it is possible that those Bitcoin could be lost forever. It is possible. It's possible also that somehow there's some way that someone could figure out to get those back. But there was a story I read, Kirby, about someone that had lost something like the equivalent of $100 million US because they were storing their Bitcoin on their computer through what's called a desktop wallet, forgot that they did that, and threw the computer away.
Oh, threw the computer away. I did hear that story.
They went to like the garbage dump, to look for it, and
How
they
would
couldn't
you
find it.
Forget that. I mean, these people probably.
Well, though, sometimes it was that they got in years and years ago, or maybe they put in a few dollars.
Yeah, put in a few dollars.
Didn't even remember, and then they're driving down the road, and they're like, "What? That's worth something now? Where's that computer that I used to have? Oh, we threw that out when we cleaned the garage. Oh, no." Yeah, so there are these stories. So people are getting more sophisticated, though. Like what I've gotten into are these offline wallets, because you can't be hacked if you're.
And you had that on your Facebook page, right? So people can find that too.
I had some pictures of. There's a couple of these that you can use. Yeah.
Okay. So, again, Elizabeth, jim@christianmoney.com.
Jim@christianmoney.com.
And so, Elizabeth, just pass it on to your son and see what Jim can do offline to help you.
Yeah, I'd be happy to help her.
Let's stay online because we got a lot of phone calls here.
All right.
Let's go to South Carolina this time. And, Nick, I think you have some questions for us. We'd love to hear them.
Okay, Jim, a couple quick questions. If I buy Bitcoin now, let's say I buy $700 worth, I'm buying about 5%. Is it designated as I'm buying a percentage of Bitcoin? That's one question.
Yeah, let me answer that, and then we'll hit your second one. So Bitcoin is divisible by up to 8 digits past the decimal point. So you can literally put in $1. I mean, I don't know what the smallest increment is, but it's pennies. I mean, so it is divisible by update. So yes, so you're buying.
You don't have to buy a whole.
You're buying a portion of a Bitcoin, sir. That's right.
Okay. Now these sites. Do I need to go through these sites to buy and sell? I mean, they're like brokers, Coinbase.
Yeah.
If I have a profit, is Coinbase going to sell it for me and then deposit that into my account?
Yeah, so what happens is, let's say that you put your $700 in and wake up one day and it's now worth $1,000, and you just want to take that money and run with it. All you'll do is you'll sell your Bitcoin, and then after the transaction goes through, you'll see that money then now exists in the cash account inside your Coinbase account, and that cash account can be connected to your bank account.
You just send it to your bank.
So you just press a button, and the next day or so, that money would show up as spendable dollars in your bank account.
So if you've ever done online...
Or there's a debit card, too. You can spend it off a debit card.
That is true.
Yeah.
Dick, if you've ever done online banking, it's very similar. If you've ever had, and I've done this a few times, I'm not as sophisticated as this guy sitting across from me, but taking money from your checking account and put it in your savings account, or sometimes I've taken it from one checking account and put it in another bank checking account. So you would control all of that just the way you do online banking.
Okay, for a fee. I'm sure they charge a fee, right?
Yep, there are fees.
Okay, now offline wallet versus Coinbase. Is Coinbase going to be safe for me? Just leave it there, or do I have to do this offline wallet?
This is the debate. So here's one side of the argument. If you're not super technically savvy, you might do what Elizabeth's son did, which is that you create such a great system of keeping it safe that even you yourself can't get to it. That could happen.
That's not good.
So if you're not super technically savvy, maybe just leaving it on Coinbase. Now, Coinbase does have a feature which is called the Coinbase Vault, which allows you to move your currency into a more secure zone inside your account. That makes it not available for trading and buying and selling. Well, it's in that vault, but this is sort of an additional layer then of security. I think Coinbase is very secure, but I like to rely more on the law of physics, which says that if my currency is not connected to the internet, it's on an external wallet, it's impossible to be hacked. So you never know when you have countries like state sponsors of hacking, like North Korea, that actually does hack to get Bitcoin. They're big Bitcoin people. Yes, the fat, what does he call him? The fat kid? McCain calls him the fat kid. He loves Bitcoin. So he's one of the millennials that wants Bitcoin, the guy over there, North Korea. And he will try to hack. I'm sure they try to hack Coinbase regularly, but there is the vault in there. But if you're not, I tell people, if you want to try the physical wallet, they're like $120 on Amazon. Ledger is the one that I use. And what you can do is just put like $10 in it. Make sure you did it right. Write down your 12 secret words. All the things they show you to do. It's actually very simple, but where people end up, Kirby, getting in trouble is they don't follow the steps. And
we just heard about that from Elizabeth's son.
They skip those steps, and the printer's out of ink, so we won't print off the 12 words or whatever. In my case, I wrote down the 12 words and have those in a safe area, separate from my wallet.
Nick, I hope that answers some of your questions.
Yeah, if I go to your site or your class, or do you teach the nuts and bolts?
Yep, that's what I do. Yeah, and I did that, Nick, because so many people hit me with so many questions. It got to the point where I was like, okay, all right, enough. We need to so we have our own private Facebook group. We have videos and we do Q&A, and everybody has, can contribute with their own ideas. So it's a pretty good thing we have set up.
And again, as we're going to the break, let me mention a few things. First of all, we have a link to Jim Paris and his website, christianmoney.com, so you can find that. We also have this article I mentioned, a prediction, will 2018 be the year of internet money? Sure seems like it. A lot of people have changed their minds. And then also we have a piece here, Point of View now accepts Bitcoin. Those of you that maybe did invest back in May and say, oh my, I could cash it out and then have to pay capital gains on it, or I could donate it just like I donate stock. Point of View benefits tremendously. And I don't have to pay the capital gains on that. So there's some ways. And I'm hoping this might be something that would fuel evangelism, missions, and others. If somebody said, my retirement's fine, and I've got this account that I created, and if I can give that to a world mission organization, all the better. But at the moment, I don't know of too many ministries that take cryptocurrency, but Point of View is one of those. You will see that right there on the corner there as you look at the picture of James Paris. Just scroll down, and you'll see Donate with Cryptocurrency, and that is a topic that we will come back to again. And again, we've already talked a little bit about how to get started, but you have some other questions, and I can see that is the case. So some want to talk about the blockchain, so we'll come back, talk about that. Some wanted to know, do I have to go through someone else to get on to these various investments? And I think the answer is no, but we'll hear that story as well. And then again, we now for the first time have an open line. A couple of minutes ago, every line was full. So if you have been saying, I wanted to ask a question, but I got a busy signal, now's the time to call during the break. Jim Paris with us. We're talking about cryptocurrency. We're talking about Bitcoin. Got a lot of other issues to cover, but we also want to take your phone calls. So we'll do that right after these messages.
Welcome to the First Liberty Briefing. I'm Jeremy Dice. Oscar Rodriguez is a decorated Air Force veteran who retired in 2013 after 33 years of service. Oscar was invited by Air Force Master Sergeant Chuck Roberson to give a flag-folding speech at Roberson's military retirement ceremony, something he's done over 100 times. Oscar agreed to give his stirring and patriotic speech, but the Air Force unit commander at Chuck's base presented a problem. Oscar's flag-folding speech included the word God. First, the unit commander tried to prevent Oscar from even attending the ceremony. When he was informed that he could not legally prevent his attendance, he told Chuck that Oscar could not give the speech. But like any good airman, Oscar was not going to abandon his wingman. He decided to give the speech anyway. And as a private citizen, Oscar is no longer subject to the commander's authority. But when Oscar stood to deliver the speech during the retirement ceremony, 4 senior airmen approached him, assaulted him, and physically dragged him out of the retirement ceremony before he even had a chance to say the word God. The Air Force broke the law and abused its power, discriminating against Oscar and service members everywhere who want to mention God in their private retirement ceremony. First Liberty Institute represents Oscar because no one should be assaulted for mentioning the name God. To learn how First Liberty Institute is defending religious liberty for all Americans, visit firstliberty.org.
You can learn how to protect religious freedom in the workplace, public schools, church, the military, and more by downloading First Liberty's free Religious Liberty Protection Guide at firstliberty.org. That's firstliberty.org. If you want hope for religious freedom, go to firstliberty.org.
Now, back to Point of View, your listener-supported source for truth.
Back once again in studio with us today, Jim Paris. We have a number of phone calls, but I might also mention on our Facebook page, some of you have been watching the program as well, and we have a couple of questions. One of those questions is, where is the link to buying Bitcoin and getting an extra 10 Bitcoin? So we actually are posting that right now on Point of View's Facebook, and
extra $10.
Yeah,
not 10 extra Bitcoins, but if I had that offer, then I would
10, be. Yeah, I'm just reading what it says, but that's right, extra 10. Yeah,
yes, sir, you got it.
But if you bought a Bitcoin, you would get, I guess. But anyway, the point is 10% anyway. Right. And then we also have some others that have some questions about Ripple and some of those. So even in addition to the questions we have on our screen from phone callers, I'll try to occasionally bring in one that comes in on email. Because I know that some people would say, I just am not somebody to get on the phone and call, but I'll leave my question on your Facebook page. So we'll do that. But this is a big question about the so-called blockchain. So Gordon in Georgia, let's go down now to Georgia before we make our way over to California, North Carolina, and a couple of other places, has a question about the blockchain. So Gordon, you have the floor.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. One thing I wanted just to mention, I really like the discussion around the value of the cryptocurrencies. But one of the things I wanted to point out is that there's a technology that comes from there called blockchain that can be used for specific uses in business. And I just wanted to kind of give an example. Everybody, at least on this radio station, should be familiar with the health cost sharing ministries, where groups of Christians get together and share their medical costs.
Sure.
Well, we're actually taking that business model to the blockchain, and so that we can make that model very easy and accessible to everybody that can access the internet.
Makes sense.
So
those health sharing ministries are such great ministries, and we've promoted them.
I'm a member of one for many years, Christian Medical Sharing Program.
Medishare, of course, we've had Samaritan's Ministries, and we've had all of them on at one point or another, and so there's another obvious way
and what
in
he's
which
saying is correct.
Yeah.
I mean, they're using this blockchain technology now, like I said earlier, everything from like managing medical records to library records to in business. So Bitcoin has not just created sort of this niche of cryptocurrency, but then this whole concept of the blockchain, which is being used on Wall Street, for example, in settling stock transactions.
Back to that issue of hacking, I think this is one of the reasons why most people feel pretty secure about Coinbase and some of the others. First of all, in preparation for all this, not only did I read a lot of stuff by you, but others, also saw an interview from the man that started this whole idea of Coinbase, and he was talking about all the work that they did to prevent any kind of hacking and to have insurance for it and everything. And so the interviewer said, well, are you concerned about that? I said, every major banking company in the world is worried about this in one way or another. And the fact that we've had a couple of glitches along the way are reasons that paying attention to it. But the longer the chain and the more involved the kind of if you will, technology behind it, the safer it is, isn't it?
Yeah, and so the two things to separate here is Bitcoin itself has never been hacked. Like the actual blockchain, it's almost impossible. I mean, it really is impossible what they tell me, because one transaction
the encryption
is connected
off
to the next,
charts.
to the next, to the next, to where you would have to unwind all the transactions back to the beginning in 2008. It's not possible to do this.
Bitcoin has never been hacked.
Right. Yeah. But the actual, like if you hold Bitcoin
in a vault,
a wallet, whatever, that can possibly be hacked. That's still where some people are concerned. So a friend of mine, he said, he has a lot of money. He said, I'd like to put some money in this, but I'll be honest with you. He said, I just can't trust this idea of putting a lot of money into this, and maybe it'll disappear the next day. I said, look, here's a thing you can do. Anybody can do this. Go buy a laptop, $200-300 laptop. That's the price, for a nice laptop. Set up a desktop wallet. All of these currencies have a piece of software you can download, which is called a desktop wallet, where that exists on your laptop. Move all of your currency that you buy to that laptop, disconnect it from the internet, put it in a bag, and put it in a safe somewhere or a closet. And now the laws of physics would prevent anybody from ever being able to hack that. He said, wow, I never thought of that. So the actual hacking can only occur if it's online. That's why so many people, Coinbase is great. They've got 2-measure, 3-measure authentication, 3-step authentication, all this stuff. But it's still theoretically possible that it could be hacked. I don't know how, but it could be. But that's why so many people.
So could your bank account tomorrow be hacked?
That's right.
Could your credit card.
So Bank of America is the first one to do this. Bank of America just got approved in the last several weeks a patent to be able to allow customers of Bank of America will, in the near future, within the next few months, be able to actually deposit cryptocurrency into their Bank of America bank account.
Yes.
And see, when
Which makes sense.
when you see these kinds of things happening, you're like, okay, this is not a fad. This is not going away. I mean, Bank of America is going to allow you to have your Bitcoin in your Bank of America savings or checking account. Amazing.
Well, again, that's why we thought we'd talk about it. And if you later on today talk to some friends about this, they're going to go, where in the world did you hear half of this? Then say, okay, let me download the podcast or go to the YouTube channel or go to the Facebook post or whatever it might be. But let's, if we can, we got time for one more phone call. We will be doing this in the second hour. So if you're on right now and you haven't been able to get your call through, just hold on, or else you can call us back. But let's stay, in this case, on the East Coast. We'll go to North Carolina. Tammy has a question for you. Jim Paris is on with you.
Yes, thank you for taking my call. I have a friend who's been asking me to get involved with Bitcoin through a multi-level marketing company, and I just wanted to find out if you think that is safe to do.
Yeah, so I've heard about this. I don't know enough about it to make a lot of comments about that particular company, which I think I know the one you're probably referencing. But I could say this. There's no need to have a third party involved in that. In other words, if you can just buy Bitcoin yourself at Coinbase, why you need to do that through an MLM type of a structure. I don't have a problem with MLM. I think there are some good network marketing companies that are out there. I've been a part of a network marketing company since 2001 myself, and I love it. I'm not going to mention on the air, but I will tell you that there's no reason to have to go through a network marketing or MLM to buy Bitcoin. I see the genius marketing of it, though. Like, hey, buy Bitcoin through our network marketing business. But why you would have to do that, I'm not persuaded there'd be any reason to do that. It just would add more expense to you buying it instead of buying it directly.
And I think sometimes people just say, well, I don't know where to get started. And that's why, again, I suggest that people might want to watch some of your videos or go to a place like Coinbase and say, okay, this is not as complicated as I thought. Now, if you're the kind of person that even the idea of online banking is just too much beyond you.
Maybe this is not for you.
I've got to write a check out, and it's got to be a physical check, and moving money from one account to the other, even within my own bank, seems a little complicated. Okay, I can see why people would want to do that. But otherwise, I think there are ways in which people get involved. And we have a whole series of questions being asked on the Facebook page here about, for example, could you have an account for your children? What about Ripple? Got some people wanting to know about all these other different kind of currencies. And we're coming up to our first top of the hour break. So if you have a question, you can certainly call us at 1-800-351-1212. You can also, of course, go to our Facebook page. We've got some material there that we've now posted for you, and we'll do our best to try to answer those questions. But Jim Paris has decided to be in 2 hours with us. I really appreciate the fact that he's given us 2 hours today. So take the time to go to the website, pointofview.net. If you do so, that will take you, of course, to him, Christian Money, and you'll be able to find a lot of stuff right there, christianmoney.com. Some of you ask questions. If you want to write to him, he's so nice to say, I'll give you my email, jim@christianmoney.com.
Yeah, I answer all my emails personally.
And again, you and Ron Rhodes and a few others are at the top of the list of people I know that just answer every one of those email questions. But if we get a lot of them, it's going to take a day or two.
I'll be up late tonight.
Yeah, okay, so be aware that if he doesn't answer in the last 15 minutes, there's a reason for that, okay? And then also, we have made it possible for those of you that maybe have already invested. I see this as a future. Maybe this can help fund some ministries where you can donate cryptocurrency, and then your donation, you get full credit for it, but you don't have to pay capital gains on it. I think it's a great deal. So we have that on a website. We'll be right back.
What difference does it make when you support Point of View? For Lee Weaver and his family, it meant doing something to reach out to women in need, and so far, to help bring nearly 5,000 babies into the world.
As a family, we were sitting around the dinner table. Our older daughter said, "Dad, we need to do something about it." And that kind of struck a chord in our family. All of that started out of Point of View and the effect it had on our conversations and our heart, leading us into don't be hearers only, but doers of the word. Point of View has always been real supporters of the concept that we're a small part of.
Your support of Point of View inspires people to do great things. You partner in spreading truth around the world. But the only way to make that happen is for you to make the call or visit us online and join the Truth Team. 1-800-347-5151 and pointofview.net/team. Do it now. 800-347-5151 and pointofview.net/team. Point of View will continue after this.
I just want to thank you so much for all the wonderful programming you have. You're just absolutely fantastic.
I recently started listening to Point of View, and I really found it interesting because of the different subjects you cover. Thank you for that.
I really appreciate everything that you do in keeping us informed.
Thank you, Kirby, for everything that you have been doing. I appreciate all the work that you're doing, advocating for the Word of God. Thank you so much.
Point of View, I think, is absolutely necessary because it's a Christian perspective, a biblical worldview perspective, and receive very current, up-to-date information about what is really going on, week to week. In our culture, which is changing so rapidly, and yet it's morally sliding backwards.
Yeah, I'm just, first of all, I thank you guys. Y'all's program is wonderful, and enjoy it every day. I learn so much every time I listen to it.
Point of View Radio Talk Show.
Hi, this is Kirby Anderson. You know, each day we take on the tough issues and provide a biblical perspective to them. The topics we cover are wide-ranging. Apologetics, theology, prophecy, creation and evolution, intelligent design, marriage, family, child-rearing, the millennial generation, trends in society, politics, economics, business, religious liberty, the Constitution, public policy, foreign policy, military policy, tensions in the Middle East, abortion, homosexuality, pornography, sexual ethics, media, technology, history, and America's godly heritage. We talk about anything that affects your faith, your family, or your freedom. So don't go anywhere, because Point of View continues right now.
Across America, live. This is Point of View. And now, Kirby Anderson.
Second hour today, if you just happened to join us, we in the first hour spent quite a bit of time talking about cryptocurrency, in particular Bitcoin, but we've talked about Ripple and some of the others. And as a matter of fact, I noticed that on our Facebook live page for Point of View Radio Talk Show, there's some questions. One of the questions from the last hour were people wanted to know where the link was to Bitcoin bonus. And so we've posted that also on the webpage, so you should be able to find it there. All you have to do is scroll around a little bit, and you'll also find some of that on the Facebook page. And, of course, I'll just at least mention one more time the fact that we have a little box there where you could donate your cryptocurrency if you've invested before. However, some of you are listening going, I have no idea what you are even talking about here. And so this might be good to talk about your class, because I see some people saying, okay, you have a course, you have an online class. People are asking, how do I sign up for the class? Is there a cost to the class? What does it involve? So let's go into the basics again.
Well, let me mention one other quick thing about giving to ministries. So one of my friends is a missionary. He travels, an evangelist. He's all over the world. And he wanted to get into the cryptocurrency thing and didn't have the funds to do it. So I told him, I said, I'd like to sow a seed into your ministry. And so I told him to set up a Coinbase account. And I made a gift of Ripple to him, under the agreement that he would just let it go for a while. Like, you know, in other words, I'm hoping like that Ripple that I gave him that cost me so little that it ends up, you know, inuring to the ministry being worth thousands and tens of thousands of dollars, you know, down the road to his organization. So that's kind of another way to look at these ministry gifts. But what was the question again?
Well, again, let's talk about your online course.
Oh, right,
Is
course.
there a cost?
Yeah.
All sorts of questions that people have related to that.
Yeah.
And by the
we
way,
have a small cost to it because it's sort of a trick I learned from my high school band director. He used to have all of our concerts were free, and then people would come in, hecklers. Kids from the neighborhood around the high school would come in to just heckle in the concert. So he decided to charge $1. And I got rid of all the hecklers. So my class is not $1. It's $77 to get into my class. But just enough that for people that are serious enough to kind of filter it out that it's not just a big public free-for-all with tens of thousands of people. So at any given time, we've got maybe around 80 or 90 people sort of exchanging ideas, participating, and I've got a number of videos that I've done. Because what happened was I got so overwhelmed, especially the last time I was here, with people asking me all the same questions, like, well, what is Bitcoin? How do I get started? What are the websites? What are the safety precautions? All these things. So my class, which is linked at christianmoney.com, it covers like all of those basic things that you would ever have questions about. And these are videos that I've already recorded. They're available on demand inside this private, it's actually called a secret Facebook group. But once you join the class, you get put into the Facebook group. And then you get to not only see everything and read everything that I'm posting, which I posted some things just this morning to the group, but also you can post your own ideas. Like you might say, hey, I just bought this coin called Stratus, and here's why I bought it, and this is my thinking on it. And then 10 or 15 other people will chime in and tell you if they bought it too or why not, and share articles from other sites. So it's kind of a group. It's kind of a group project, and we've kept it kind of small now, less than 100, but I'm opening it back up again for new people that want to join us.
And again, like we said to Tammy the last hour, you don't have to join an MLM to buy Bitcoin. You don't have to go to Jim Paris's class to do it. We just wanted to answer some of your questions. And I have a number on the Facebook, but people that are online, they get first preference because I know it's hard to just have that phone up to your ears. So let's go to the state of Texas this time. KAVX and Beverly, thank you for waiting from the previous hour. And if you have a question for us, I'd love to have you put it on the line for us.
Hi, yes, I have a question. Jim mentioned that he trades, I think he said, in about 46 different cryptocurrencies. I wonder if you could explain what you mean by that. Do you make a profit in one and then purchase more of the other, or what exactly do you mean?
Let me clarify. I presently own 46 different cryptocurrencies at this time. And let me tell you why I have so many. Up until about a year or two ago, all I had was Bitcoin and Ripple. That was it. But I started looking at all of these others where you could get in for less than a penny, and my imagination started wondering if maybe one of these might not be the next Bitcoin. And so what I've been doing is, as I've had profits from the bigger coins, I've started buying the smaller coins. And each time you go to buy a smaller coin, sometimes you have to open up a new account at a different exchange and go through a verification process. It's work to get into some of these smaller coins that are not as widely available as, say, Bitcoin or Ethereum or these others. But the reason why I own 46 and plan to buy even more, it's sort of an ongoing project, maybe put $100 in or $500 in, smaller amounts of money into these others, is because maybe one of these is going to be the next Bitcoin. So I do a lot of reading. I've got a lot of subscriptions that I pay for that I read about cryptocurrency, but I do also a little bit of day trading. So let me just say that there's a stock you can get involved with called the Bitcoin Trust, which trades under the symbol GBTC. So phonetically, that's George, Boy, Thomas, Charlie. I day trade that in our IRA accounts, which means that I'm usually only in it for 1 or 2 or 3 days, and then I'm out of it. And I have sort of a little method I've developed of when to buy and sell. And I did tremendously well with that last year. But most of my other cryptocurrencies, I just more or less buy and hold them. I do reallocate those. So if Bitcoin isn't doing so well and Ethereum's all of a sudden perking up, maybe I'll take 20% of my Bitcoin and move it over to Ethereum to have more there. So that reallocating idea is something that I do. But these are positions that I'm kind of looking at as for the long run. So far, 46 different coins.
Yes. Beverly, I don't know if you have a Bible nearby, but you might go to open your Bible to Ecclesiastes 11. And that's verse 2. And if you notice in Ecclesiastes there, it says, give a portion to 7 or even to 8, for you know not what disaster may happen on earth. And so there is a biblical principle here that having diversification is a good thing. You've heard the old axiom, put all your eggs in one basket and watch that basket. Not a good idea.
Yeah.
And by having it, you've overdone it, I think, with 46, but who knows? Probably next time you're on the show, you'll have 100. But the bottom line is there's some wisdom. There's some biblical financial wisdom of following what it says in Ecclesiastes, of having diversified portfolio, because anybody that's invested everything in gold or everything in real estate or even everything in Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever it might be, that's just not a biblical principle of finance, is it?
Yeah, and I kind of almost look at what I've done is created my own cryptocurrency mutual fund, which nothing like that exists. So I've just sort of created it for myself. I still do have the most exposure to the bigger names, my largest position being in that Ripple XRP.
We'll talk a little bit more about Ripple because I see we have questions about that. Some people wonder, as you just pointed out a minute ago, that you could, if you will, gift that to a missionary. What about to your kids and some other things, and inheritance? And we've got a lot of other questions, but now that's opened up the phones again. So if you just got a busy signal and you said, okay, I would like to ask Jim Paris a question, but I haven't had a chance to do so, why don't, as we go to a break here, you give us a call, 1-800-351-1212. We're still, of course, doing the broadcast as well on Facebook Live, and I see some of the questions you're asking there. We'll get to those when we have a chance as well. Let's take a break. We'll have a lot more to talk about right after this.
This is Viewpoints with Kirby Anderson.
As last year was ending and this year was beginning, we've seen tumult in Tehran. While Iranians have been protesting in the streets, there is another important story that is being missed. Mark Howard, writing in the Gospel Coalition, says that the story can be summarized in 2 sentences. Persecution threatened to wipe out Iran's tiny church. Instead, the church in Iran has become the fastest growing in the world, and it is influencing the region for Christ. This is an incredible story. When the Iranian Revolution took place in the late 1970s, Christians faced persecution from the militant Muslim leaders. Bibles were banned and missionaries were kicked out of the country. Many feared that might be the end of the tiny Iranian church. Michael Brown compares it to the fears Christians had when China closed its doors behind the bamboo curtain and began persecuting Christians. But instead of that being the end of Christianity in China, just the opposite happened. Millions of Chinese people became Christians. Something similar has happened in Iran. More Iranians have become Christians in the last 20 years than in the previous 13 centuries. Operation World named Iran as having the fastest growing evangelical church in the world. Also, I might mention that they believe that the second fastest growing church is in Afghanistan. Why is the church in Iran growing so fast? Well, first, the violence done in the name of Islam has caused widespread disillusionment with Islam itself and the Iranian regime. Second, bold Iranian Christians are proclaiming the gospel to their fellow citizens and giving hope in the midst of difficult circumstances. Although the press will cover the protests in the streets, I think the more important story is what is happening in the hearts of the Iranian people who are converting to Christ in record numbers. I'm Kirby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
For more information about issues covered on Viewpoints, visit pointofview.net. Pointofview.net.
You're listening to Point of View, your listener-supported source for truth.
In studio today, Jim Paris, and again, he is with ChristianMoney.com. We have some information about that on our website, pointofview.net. We also have some of the links that we were talking about, both on Point of View and also on the Facebook page, which is Point of View Radio Talk Show. And if you're just joining us, one of the reasons we are doing this is because the last time you were on, all sorts of questions surfaced, and I just thought it would be wonderful if we could get you in studio, and you are willing to give us 2 hours today. So got 45 minutes left. If you got a question and you haven't called by now, you better, because you may run out of time. As I look at the Facebook page, I see some people that in the past and even on the line who then couldn't stay on there ask about Ripple. I suspect that part of it is maybe they heard you talk about Coinbase. They went there and go, okay, I see Bitcoin, I see Ethereum, I see Litecoin, but I don't see Ripple. So the question is, if I want to buy this Ripple, which is $1 something right now, where would you go?
Yeah. So the harder some of these are to buy, some of the students in my class are upset. They're frustrated that they can't buy Ripple on Coinbase. But I said to one of them a couple weeks ago, I said, no, don't be upset. Be glad, because if it were on Coinbase, think of how much more money you would have to pay for one Ripple. That is, the easier these coins become to buy, the easier they become to buy, the more people that buy them, thus the higher demand with the fixed supply, and you have much higher prices. So this is the time to get in. So what Ripple does, I'm reading this from their wiki page, it says they purport to enable, quote, secure, instantly and nearly free global financial transactions of any size with no chargebacks. So this has been compared to like money wires, international settlement of
You have to jump through a lot more
money.
hoops, don't you,
Right.
for this one? Because it's more like a bank, almost. Yeah.
And this is sort of a way of bringing the banks into the cryptocurrency. So in order to buy this, you have a couple of options, mainstream options. One is a site called gatehub.net, which is based out of London. And they are one of the primary sources to be the exchanges to buy Ripple. There's another one called Binance. So think finance, but with a B, Binance.com, which is a Hong Kong-based exchange. Both of those places you can buy Ripple. The easiest way to buy it, however, is probably not with U.S. dollars, would be to buy Bitcoin at Coinbase, then take some of that Bitcoin you want to trade for Ripple, to exchange for Ripple, move that to either Binance or GateHub. So now you've moved your Bitcoin. It's now on the exchange that offers Ripple, and you'll then use Bitcoin to exchange it into Ripple. It sounds a little bit complicated, but as I've said to my students, once it becomes super easy, and the word is, it's a rumor, unconfirmed rumor, but in the next few weeks, Coinbase is supposed to add several more currencies, and it would be inconceivable to most of us that Ripple would not be one of those, being that it's the number 2 or number 3 market cap cryptocurrency in the world, just behind Bitcoin, that it would not be one of those added. And so the thinking then goes that if Coinbase did add Ripple and it became super easy to buy, like what is happening with Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, and Bitcoin Cash, that the price will go up a lot. That's all sort of speculating, connecting a lot of dots there, but that could be the case.
Let's take some more phone calls, and in this case, we'll head out to Ohio. Tim, you have a question for Jim Paris.
Yes, a couple of questions. One, is it possible to use Bitcoin or these other currencies to supplement my Social Security disability?
Well, I don't know what your disability limitations are. Generally, there would be probably a restriction on you having earned income from other sources to be able to continue. I think there's a monthly limit of $700 or some figure like that you can earn before you might have to give up your disability income. Whether or not investment income from cryptocurrencies could cause you to lose that, I don't know the answer to that. You'd really have to, it's probably a rule that hasn't been written yet, to be honest with you, because they're just now coming up with the tax rules on Bitcoin. So whether or not making too much in Bitcoin negates your Social Security disability, I do not know.
Okay. Is it possible to use Bitcoin as part of an IRA?
So the way to buy Bitcoin in an IRA, you technically right now, there is no mainstream way to actually buy Bitcoin itself in an IRA except for the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, symbol GBTC. That's George Boy Thomas Charlie. That does trade as a stock. So any stockbroker, Scott Trade, Charles Schwab, Fidelity, you can go in to an IRA account using that 4-letter symbol GBTC, and you can actually buy that stock, and that fund owns Bitcoin. It's very volatile. It's considered to be sort of cutting-edge, risky kind of thing, but you can buy that in an IRA.
Interesting. One of the other questions on the screen there was, can I trade options on any of these cryptocurrencies? You know, you've sort of alluded to that. But
there are now in Chicago, both the Chicago Merc and the Chicago Board Options Exchange are both trading a large number of Bitcoin futures contracts. And what this means is that instead of having to buy like one full Bitcoin for $14,000, you could actually make a guess that, hey, I think Bitcoin's going to be worth $25,000 by this time next year. And you could go to a futures contract that would allow you to, say, put in $1,000 or $2,000 to make that quote unquote bet that Bitcoin's going to be at that higher price. the trading of options, a lot of it, the futures trading and so forth, are people hedging. So there's some people like this Tim Draper who has, I don't know how many billions of dollars in Bitcoin. He was one of the first guys in, and some of those guys are buying the selling short side of the contract, which is that if Bitcoin went down a lot in value, their futures contracts would kick in as like an insurance policy to help offset some of their losses. So some people are playing what we call the long side, hoping for the higher prices. Some people are playing the short side, hoping for the lower prices. But that's a whole new world that just started back in December, the futures exchange.
One of the other questions that people have trouble getting their head around is Bitcoin, $14,000, almost $20,000. Ripple, $1 something. Why is you just have almost every one of them has a different value? And talk about that for a minute.
So it's simply how it's denominated.
Yeah.
So if you take the number of coins that are in circulation times the price of each coin, you get what's called the market capitalization. This is the same thing that's done with stocks. Mm-hmm. Take the number of stocks, shares trading, times the price of each stock share. That gives you the market capitalization of a company. So it's just the way that Ripple decided to denominate itself, that it denominated itself in very small amounts. Now, in the beginning, it was very psychologically tough because people are like, I can get like 6 of these for a penny. I'm not doing that. What is this? What kind of garbage is this? Well, now it's $1.80, $1.90. And there's psychologically people say, you know what? I can actually I could take $1,000 and I could buy 500 of those. I can't even buy one Bitcoin.
Right.
So there is sort of that psychological aspect to it. However, in pure dollars and cents, Bitcoin's market capitalization is about half of what, Ripple is about half of what Bitcoin is.
Yeah.
So as far as the universe goes, Ripple is about half the size. So Bitcoin is this 6 foot tall guy, and Ripple is still a 3 foot tall guy compared to Bitcoin. But there's a point at which there's so many of these other smaller ones eating away at the market share that Bitcoin is now only controlling about maybe 30 to 40% of the cryptocurrency market, when at one time they were like almost the whole market.
Almost the whole market.
So these smaller ones are sort of moving in and taking over market share. So Ethereum and Ripple will battle day to day who's going to be number 2 to Bitcoin because of their changes in value. And Ethereum has done very well recently, and so they've jumped up to number 2. The one site that I look at a lot, which people might want to write this down, is coinmarketcap.com. That has a list of all of the top 100 cryptocurrencies with real-time prices and also real-time calculation of the market cap. So right now, as I look at it right now, we've got Bitcoin as number 1, and Ethereum is number 2, and Ripple is number 3. And Ripple, because the prices come down a lot, is only 1/6 right now of Bitcoin. But there was a time in recent days when Ripple was like 340, and it was moving up there.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, ask a few Christian questions, maybe the skeptical ones. Is this something Christians should get involved in? Is it the mark of the beast? All the kind of questions that some of the people ask. I will do that in your stead. But if you'd like to ask another question, 1-800-351-1212. We'll take those calls and those comments and questions right after this.
With the way things are going right now, there's got to be a source of truth somewhere.
Eric lives in California, and he's listened to Point of View since he was a child hanging around his dad's auto shop in Nevada. He says it's his only trustworthy source of information about what's happening in the world.
Well, I feel bad because I have not been donating, and I'll tell you what, I'm getting back to that because just recently I realized with all the junk going on with all the media, with all these news things, the only one that I count on is you guys, and what would I do if you guys weren't there? I don't know what I'd do. Where would I get my news? And I would be dead in water. So I got to do my part.
Make sure you do your part, like Eric. Join the Truth Team. Get all the details by calling 1-800-347-5151 or visit online, pointofview.net/team. Support the truth and make a difference for the future. 800-347-5151 and pointofview.net/team. 800-347-5151 and pointofview.net/team. Point of View will continue after this.
You are listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again is Kirby Anderson.
Final half hour, and we have in studio with us, just for a little bit longer, Jim Paris of Christian Money. And if you just joined us and have not asked your question, maybe you're just even wondering what we're talking about. We're talking about cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, and we're doing it because so many of you have had questions. And as I look down, I see we have more questions coming up. One that will be a good setup for one of the callers in just a minute is that there's been a question. We've talked about this before, Jim. how is Bitcoin and how are cryptocurrencies sometimes used? Sometimes they're not exactly used for the most Christian of values, and so I know you have a simple answer to that.
Right. So back in the early days of cryptocurrency, because of the anonymity of cryptocurrency and it not being very much regulated like it is presently,
right,
people used it on what was called the Silk Road, which was sort of like a dark web, they called it, where you could go online and buy drugs and child pornography, all kinds of horrible, terrible things. Yeah. Much of that has gone away because it is now being more regulated. To have a Bitcoin account, you have to prove your identity, and it's much more like opening a traditional bank account. However, the one thing that I always say to that is all of those terrible things are happening with U.S. dollars as much as they're happening, probably even not even near the scale with cryptocurrency as is what's happening with physical cash and so forth. The only thing, it gave people a way to do that online, the things they were doing in back alleys with physical cash, drug deals and so forth. But I look at it the same way that I do the technology of the Internet. When the Internet first became popular, the late 90s, early 2000s, a lot of Christian organizations stayed away from it because many Christians believed that the Internet was only for gambling and pornography. And it is true that in the early days, those were two of the bigger industries that kind of tapped into it. However, we kind of became more enlightened and said, you know what? We shouldn't give this territory to Satan. We're going to put our Christian books online and our Christian TV and radio shows and have our ministry websites. And we sort of staked our own claim. And in that same way, I think the technology of cryptocurrency is really a neutral thing, and we can use it for good or bad.
Well,
that's
again,
my view
we've
on
talked about using it even to donate to ministries. We've got that a link on our website, and maybe a way that you could invest in another ministry if you want to,
Sure.
or, of course, invest in your own retirement or your kids' education. Again, we've said more than once, I'll say it one more time, don't assume that this is the safe investment out there. Do what you can with that which you could afford to lose, but at the same time, I think it's here to stay, and that's kind of one of the reasons we're talking about it today. Let's take a phone call that I think relates to this in California. Elora, thank you for calling today here on Point of View.
Hello, can you hear me?
We sure can. What would you like to add to our conversation?
So my question is not related to Bitcoin. It's more investments related to buying stocks, marijuana stocks. And do you feel that's ethical? Do you look at it as the same way as buying stock for a pharmaceutical company? And I wanted to hear your opinion in regards to that, since it's legal now in California.
Yeah, it is legal, so it's legal.
Yeah, so
it's moral.
My view is I'm personally still in the camp that marijuana is a gateway to other drugs. And I have a big problem with the so-called state legalization of it, especially when it's still illegal under federal law. And I also know people in the pharmaceutical business that tell me that all of the things that they claim you can only do with marijuana are already available by way of prescription drugs in all the states. So it seems to me to be a contrived argument to try to get recreational laws passed for recreational use of marijuana. So as the investment guy, I know I'm not brought in here as sort of the moral conscience of the world, but as the investment guy, I wouldn't put money in it because I would feel like I'm contributing to something that is in conflict with my moral views.
And we'll probably come back to that because it's a really good question. And we've had everybody from O.S. Hawkins to Jerry Tuma in here. O.S. Hawkins, for example, they make a point of only investing in things that they can be sure do not lead to abortion, drugs, alcohol, tobacco, just all those kinds of things, if you will, really safe kind of moral investments. Mm-hmm. And their mutual funds have done extremely well. So I think in some respects you can honor the Lord with that kind of investment. But we have a number of other questions, so let's move down the road here to the state of Texas this time, KCTA. Joanne, what would you like to ask?
Hi, yes. I was curious about how these transactions that are being done online are being turned into the IRS and whatnot. I've heard that they're not, and that the government's fixing to crack down on that. And are there any regulations now?
Yes and no. So let me tell you, the IRS did go to court and did make Coinbase, who is reluctant to do it, turn over a large amount of their customer records recently. We now also know that officially in the IRS code, cryptocurrency is referenced, and the gains that you make on a cryptocurrency transaction are treated the same way as a gain on a stock. So the capital gains laws, short-term versus long-term capital gains, that all applies. Now, we're not yet at the point with the industry where people are getting 1099s and all those kind of tax documents that you normally would get from like your stockbroker or your bank. But my understanding is probably by the end of this year, going into, say, the next tax year, so it would be by the time you file your 2018 tax return in 2019, most, at least, of the U.S.-based exchanges will be giving you all of that same tax documentation just like you get from your brokerage account.
So again, the answer is yes and no. But again, I think in long term, it's just as you would invest in a stock, maybe you spend $100 and the stock sells for $500, you got a capital gains of $400. Likewise, whether it's Bitcoin or Ethereum or Ripple or any of those, eventually that will be the case. But right now, it's a little bit like we just said a minute ago in terms of the dark web, because some of the facts and figures and statistics aren't necessarily available to the IRS, but we still should pay what we owe, right?
Right, yeah. Absolutely.
So again, that's one of those things as well. A caller wanted to know where on the website you could find the link to the class, because some people are saying, I've been scouring. And,
So if you just go to christianmoney.com, at the top of the page, there's a goofy picture of me with a Bitcoin hat on. And
that should be efficient. Pretty easy to find.
Yeah, there's a link there to my class. I also have a direct URL, which is bitcoinworkshop.us for people that just want to type that in, bitcoinworkshop.us.
And again, as you go there, you have 4 reasons to get your free credit reports. So you have the cryptocurrency online training class and a number of other things, some of your recommendations. So it's pretty easy to find. But again, if people have just joined us, once again, just before we take another phone call, let's talk about what that course involves, what the cost is, and how people might benefit if they wanted to take it. I think you can invest in any of these cryptocurrencies without
you don't need the class, and the class exists only because people have so many questions. The biggest question I probably have gotten over time is how to avoid being scammed.
Yes, okay, that's a good one.
And so this is covered in the class, but I'll give you an example of this that is really quite remarkable. That, you know, when you go into your App Store, Google App Store, or the iPhone, the Apple Store, those wallets that are in there are not vetted by anyone. So so many people have lost literally millions of dollars by going in, putting a wallet app on their phone, thinking it's a legitimate wallet app for one of the exchanges, and it's only just somebody scamming to steal their cryptocurrency. And so this is one of the big scams that is still going on right now. There are still unauthorized wallets that are in the App Store. So these are some of the things we talk about, how to get started, as far as, getting an account open. What does that look like? How do you sell Bitcoin? So people say, oh, I bought it, but now I want to sell it. How do I sell it? How do I convert it to money? You can get the cash back out. You can connect a debit card type of a tool to your account. So we get into all of these things. There are several videos, and then there's the interaction. So the class is $77, and then after 30 days, if you want to stay in the group, it's $9.95 a month to stay in the group, which is all the real-time exchanging of ideas and conversations that take place in our secret. It's called a secret Facebook group. It actually is called that. It's kind of cool. But so you can't Google or search it or find it on Facebook. You have to actually be a member, and I can only click and add you as a member to it. So
again, I don't want anybody to feel like they have to do that. We've already said it a couple of times. Let's say it one more time. You could go on, one of the ones we mentioned a minute ago is Coinbase or some of the others, and you could go on for Ripple on gatehub.net or any of those. And once you find what you need, just do it on your own. But again, if you wanted some direction, or you wanted to get involved as much as Jim Paris has been involved, or begin to, as you said earlier, 46 different currencies that you own at the moment, then that will give you that information there as well. Why are we doing this? Again, you've had so many questions, and as you've noticed, the questions keep coming. We'll do our best to kind of summarize some of this in the last segment. He's given us 2 hours, and after that, you can write to Jim at christianmoney.com, right?
That's it.
And you are so good about responding to emails, but if you write an email right now, don't expect that
3 in the morning you'll get your answer.
Yes, he's going out to barbecue later on, too, so give him a chance to go and eat. So we're going to take a break. We'll come back with any more phone calls, 1-800-351-1212, if you'd like to join us right after this.
Welcome to the First Liberty Briefing. I'm Jeremy Dice. Oscar Rodriguez is a decorated Air Force veteran who retired in 2013 after 33 years of service. Oscar was invited by Air Force Master Sergeant Chuck Roberson to give a flag-folding speech at Roberson's military retirement ceremony, something he's done over 100 times. Oscar agreed to give his stirring and patriotic speech, but the Air Force unit commander at Chuck's base presented a problem. Oscar's flag-folding speech included the word God. First, the unit commander tried to prevent Oscar from even attending the ceremony. When he was informed that he could not legally prevent his attendance, he told Chuck that Oscar could not give the speech. But like any good airman, Oscar was not going to abandon his wingman. He decided to give the speech anyway. And as a private citizen, Oscar is no longer subject to the commander's authority. But when Oscar stood to deliver the speech during the retirement ceremony, 4 senior airmen approached him, assaulted him, and physically dragged him out of the retirement ceremony before he even had a chance to say the word God. The Air Force broke the law and abused its power, discriminating against Oscar and service members everywhere who want to mention God in their private retirement ceremony. First Liberty Institute represents Oscar because no one should be assaulted for mentioning the name God. To learn how First Liberty Institute is defending religious liberty for all Americans, visit firstliberty.org.
You can learn how to protect religious freedom in the workplace, public schools, church, the military, and more by downloading First Liberty's free Religious Liberty Protection Guide at firstliberty.org. That's firstliberty.org. If you want hope for religious freedom, go to firstliberty.org.
Now, back to Point of View, your listener-supported source for truth.
If you'd like to join our conversation, 1-800-351-1212. Got a number of phone calls, so let's, if we can, head up to Alaska, KJNP. Jonah, you're on with Jim Paris. What's your question for us today?
Hi, thank you, Jim. I was wondering what happens with the solved algorithms that the blockchain is solving?
Boy, I don't know. You might be getting into, there's part of this that, I'll be honest with you, I was one of those people that said in the beginning, I am not going to invest in this till I can understand it all. And then someone told me, no, you can't look at it like that because you'll never understand it unless you're a computer programmer. So it sounds like that's probably where you're taking me right now, is into a part of it that I do not understand. I do know that there are algorithms. I do know they are solved. Do know that's how the blockchain works and the whole mining community of Bitcoin. But maybe you're going to ask me that so you can give me some information on that.
Jonah, can you?
Okay.
Okay. Well,
I thought it was a rhetorical. Maybe he was going to step in and tell me where they go. I don't know.
No.
I'll be honest with you.
Do a Google search and see if you can find out. But back to the blockchain, that's something that people wonder about. Okay, I don't hold anything in my hands, but I do hold the chain, the, if you will, the computer software, which is, highly encrypted so that no one can break into it. No one's ever been able to hack into Bitcoin, although they sometimes can hack into a wallet possibly, as we just mentioned a minute ago. But that's what makes it so secure, right?
Yeah, and so here's one way that most people can really understand the blockchain is if you put a desktop wallet on your computer, meaning you're going to hold whatever that cryptocurrency is on your actual computer hard drive, which can be done, or an external wallet or an online account. When you first install a desktop wallet, here's what happens. It actually has to download every transaction in the history of that cryptocurrency up to the present day before it will show your balance that you hold in it, because it's all connected.
Yeah.
You can't have half of that file and show the present day balances. So it's almost like a checkbook, but each line isn't like the next line, a separate line. It's like all connected. Thus the chain, every transaction is connected to the next transaction. And that history, that transactional history, is what is the security. Because in order for your transaction where I just sent you Bitcoin, in order for that to not exist, every transaction from day one of Bitcoin has to disappear relative to that transaction. So it is a really ingenious concept, and to put these algorithms in place and what we call mining. This is another big thing I get into in my class, which is how you can actually get some of these currencies for free by using your computer to help solve the mathematical problems. We have, however, in the class determined, all of us as a group, that it's not worth it to mine, that you're better off to just take your money and buy the coins, that you'll be farther ahead doing that than
you don't
to
have
try
these
to
fast computers.
buy all these computers to do it for you. Although there are some places in the country where electricity is really cheap and the weather is colder, that they do mine. And even in North Korea, there's a tremendous amount of mining their government is doing.
Well, we just got a call from Alaska, so that's one of those places as well. Let's, if we can, also answer another question people have, and that is, we'll just stay on Bitcoin for a minute. 21 million is all you're going to have.
That's it.
Maybe we're up to, 17 million right now. And people say, well, they'll just change that later on. No, from what I understand, and again, even though I put myself through graduate school programming computers, this is a little above my pay grade, to put it mildly. There's a limitation so that no one can break into those chains and make more. So you have a static amount. And so just economics 101, lots of people in the world want to use Bitcoins, and there's only a limited amount. What happens to the price?
Yeah, and not only is there a limited amount of 21 million, but I heard a very, very good analysis the other day where they were discussing how many Bitcoin have been lost.
Yes.
And there's some number of between 5 and 8 million of those 21 million theoretical potential maximum dollars of our Bitcoin that can be created in the next, say, 5 or 6 years, that somewhere between 5 and 8 million have been lost. So now you're down to like 15, 14 million. And if you have this whole wave of like mutual funds, all of this demand that's going to be coming, which is all pent up demand, who knows where it goes? This is where some of these calculations are leading people to $1 million for a single Bitcoin, 2 million. I've never made any of those predictions, but I know I started buying when it was $12, and now I look at it and it's like $14,174. I still can't wrap my brain around it, but that's what it is.
It is what it is. And if anybody says, well, how do you know it's that? You can literally move it from Bitcoins to cash, dollars. And then you can send those dollars to your bank and say, yep, it's really there. And people always say, what's it worth? Well, I always tell my kids, it's whatever somebody wants to pay for it. That's what it's worth,
One of the big things that comes up in our online class is, and I kind of have a little bit of a smart aleck answer to this, but people say, well, why is this certain coin going up? What's going on? And I'll usually start by saying there are more people buying than selling. That's what I'll start by saying. And then usually there's some, related news event or something that's happening. But it's that simple in economics. There's more people buying than selling. And it's funny because we've now kind of moved to the point where most people have heard of Bitcoin, which even like a few months ago, most people had never even heard the word Bitcoin, but now at least the word Bitcoin is out there. But I still think we haven't even scratched the scratch yet of like the market of this, which is why I say, I don't know, maybe there's 3 or 4% of us crazy people doing this cryptocurrency thing. Can you imagine when it's even 30% or 40% of the population doing this?
I might just mention, when you go to Christian Money, of course, we talked last time you were with us about a grandmother who paid for a trip for a grandson. The family are taking online surveys, how to get a free phone, how to find the cheapest flight. So there's a lot of those kinds of very practical things as well. And that's one of the things I've also appreciated about what you do there at Christian Money. And again, if people want to know more about the course, just look for the hat with the Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, right.
And that should tell you.
ChristianMoney.com.
And follow those links. And
BitcoinWorkshop.us is the direct URL.
And so we've got all of that here. And I really appreciate you coming all the way from Florida. It isn't too cold here today.
No, I love Dallas.
You know, to get here.
And I'm going to get some barbecue tonight.
Yeah, I know you're going to get some barbecue. So again, all sorts of information available at the website, pointofview.net. If you click on the picture of Jim Paris, that will take you to, of course, christianmoney.com. As you look at that, it will give you lots of links and information. Some of that gives you a chance to see some of his radio shows, some of the recommendations, which we just talked about a minute ago, and, of course, the class. And also, one of the things we've done today, we just thought it would be kind of fun for any of you that have already invested, is you can actually donate to this ministry with cryptocurrency. And I suspect before long you'll be able to donate to a lot of other ministries, but we just want to be sort of on the cutting edge. And so thank you for making that a possibility as well.
That's great. You'll be the first one.
Yes.
Someday down the road they'll say, wow, you had your Bitcoin account set up by 2018? You know, you really had that set up?
Well, again, that was something we were doing. And again, we will get back into the news tomorrow, but just wanted to have at least one opportunity for you to ask a question of Jim Paris. If you didn't get through, you had a busy signal, or you think about a question 2 minutes from now, let me just mention that you can contact him. If this came a little fast and furious, or you had to jump in and out of the car while you were listening to this, or you didn't get to hear the entire amount, or you wanted to go back and take some notes, had somebody saying I was trying to take notes while I'm driving down the road. Do not do that. You know, we have a live broadcast, and we also have an opportunity for you to watch and listen later at your convenience. It's all available at the website, pointofview.net. Again, I hope this has been helpful to you. This is why we want to encourage you to use biblical principles about your own finances, and I hope this was something that you might want to apply in the future. I want to thank Andrew and Steve for their help behind the scenes. Tomorrow we'll get back into some of the news items, and we will see you back here tomorrow, right here on Point of View.
Is religious freedom still a cornerstone of the republic, or has it effectively been crushed by the forces of tolerance? America needs Christians to be informed and as unified as possible, applying God's wisdom to civic life. Point of View can be a key part of a successful mission. I believe in America. I believe God